Today is different, and it's not different in the aspect that I'm going to be talking about Ukraine. As much as I'm interested in geopolitical, political, economic, blah blah history conversation, I love all of that, even though most of you watching this probably have no interest in it or little interest. It's not my cup of tea because I'm not over there interviewing or watching the situation, nor have I been trained to, well, far from it, actually. So we're not going to be talking about it. But you, along with myself, should just be praying that things don't further escalate, even though they already have been escalated. But much like how all of the stuff I just mentioned isn't my cup of tea to talk about, what I'm going to talk about today isn't either. And that is Michigan and Michigan State basketball. I'm a college football guy, not much a college basketball guy, although it's probably the sport I watch the most outside of college football and the NFL, would be college basketball. And I'm interested in it. I know enough to talk about it, but I'm not nearly as much of an expert as I am at college football, or depending on the team, even the NFL. So, a fair warning to those of you watching this. If I say something that's out of line, just correct me down in the comments below like I encourage you to do every other video. But Michigan and Michigan State basketball is disgusting. It is vomit. So it is a dish of vomit that has been served to you. It's horrible. Michigan State at some point I think was 17-3. They were top 10 and everything fell apart. And Michigan from the beginning of the season was atrocious. Like, honestly, underperforming in their earlier games, losing at home to Seton Hall, getting blown out by Arizona, who's turned out to be an elite team and a team that can definitely contend for the national title, but nonetheless still an embarrassing blowout. Juwan Howard punching one of Wisconsin's assistants, and Moussa Diabate and another player whose name I forget also being suspended a game. Michigan has been a failure from the beginning. I think Michigan was projected to win the Big Ten and possibly contend for a national title. That fell through. Obviously, they're in danger of missing the tournament. Michigan State, just a month ago, you would have never thought they were in danger of missing the tournament. Did they look like they could contend for a national title? No, they turned over the ball too many times, continuously in games, and won a lot of close games. But they won. Did what a lot of previous Tom Izzo teams did. Got respect. They won close games. They didn't necessarily have a leader, but it looked like they could pull through, maybe win the Big Ten. It all fell apart. It all fell apart. And now Michigan State, they're in their own heads. They've lost 5 out of 6. The trajectory they are going, they could miss the tournament by way of nearly losing out. That's scary. That shouldn't even happen. This Michigan State team, as bad as it is, at least from my memory, as I watched a lot of college basketball last year, and actually have watched quite a bit of it this year as well, just not as intense about it as I am football, this state team is better. They're more experienced and more talented than last year's Michigan State team, which was also an atrocity to watch. I just can't believe it, honestly. And we're going to mainly be talking about the last 2 games and then previewing the upcoming games, because I think these coming games are must-wins if these teams want to reach the tournament, or if they want to have any sense of life in them when they play in the tournament. Michigan State has to somewhat show up or show a pulse against Purdue, otherwise they're going to get blown out on their home stadium. And I think if Michigan State if they get humiliated again, but this time at their home stadium, that could be the nail in the coffin. And if Michigan loses to Illinois, they'll get swept by Illinois, a team who's essentially a rival because of what happened last year. They'll be 15-12, and because that's another quality opponent and I say we because I'm a Michigan fan, that Michigan has lost to, that shrinks their chances of going to the tournament as well. So all of this sucks, whether you're a Michigan or Michigan State fan. It all stinks. We can relate. Our teams, Michigan State, yes, did beat Michigan. We're tied for what? I think like 6th or something. It's insane. Yeah, we're tied for 6th with Iowa, who, by the way, is by far, by a mile, the best out of the 3 teams tied for 6th. They just had, I think, a rough early middle start, and now they're finally picking up. Keegan Murray is really good. You can't even blame Michigan State for getting owned when it came to Keegan Murray and Iowa shooting threes. But losing by 26 points and giving up is horrible. It is absolutely horrible. It's inexcusable. I was picking my friend up from college. He got hit by a car on his way to work, so I've been driving him places. And I was listening to this game quite intently because it's Michigan State on the road. As a Michigan fan, I'm waiting for the moment where the team that beat us and humiliated us in Breslin turns back on. Like Gabe Brown couldn't do anything. 0 of 7 of field goals. Hauser, I made some weird and bad plays. Christie, 2 of 11, 1 of 4 from 3-point. I'm looking at these stats, and the stats tell the story of exactly what I heard on the radio. Keon Coleman was in the game, a guy who plays football, a guy who primarily, I think, plays football. He was on the floor in the first half. And the only way that Tom Izzo was going to do that is if his starting 5 weren't putting in full effort or were messing up too much. And you know what? They did. He put Keon Coleman in, and actually during, I think, the 5 minutes he was in, Michigan State outscored Iowa. And in the end, it just didn't matter. Iowa, after halftime, even more so, turned on the Jets. And at some point, Michigan State was down by 32 until, of course, garbage time kicked in way before then, actually. And Michigan State lost 86-60. Iowa shot 43% of their field goals, 42% from 3. Michigan State shot 30% from 3, 35% of their field goals. And the scary part of all of this is Iowa normally shoots 35% from 3 and 45% field goals. So Iowa played a little bit above average with 3, but overall played their standard game. And oddly enough, Michigan somehow beat this team 2 weeks ago. But Michigan State, and you look at Michigan State stats too, and look at how they played earlier, it's not even that they're this bad of a team. They're not. But they're in their own head. They've given up. It's really just, it's kind of sad in a certain sense. It's really sad. And it's not a knock on Michigan State because, oh boy, we're going to get to Michigan here. And even though I'm going to be reviewing their game against Rutgers too, oh boy, I have no words for the inexcusable collapse of my basketball program and the actions of my coach. But Michigan State is facing a Purdue team that shoots 50% of field goals. They're just a really good team, averaging 82 points a game, allowing around 68. They're 4th in the country for a reason. Now they have, and this is hope for State, all 4 of their losses are in conference, and some of them have been to questionable teams. Michigan on the road. I think Rutgers was on the road as well. From what I've understood, they have struggled and have had moments in the Big Ten. So is there hope for State winning? Yes. But if they don't, State will be 18-10, 9-8 in conference. They'll be out of the picture for winning the regular season. And it will be another demoralizing loss. And the more of those pile on, the more you're going to get in your own head, the more the door closes to the potential of this team waking up. That's just my thoughts and opinions on Michigan State. And now we're going to move on to, my gosh, this is why. Let me explain to you in a few sentences, a phrase, a quote, why I appreciate Jim Harbaugh going 12-2. Because this team exists. This team, if not for Michigan going 12-2, I would make maybe 1 or 2 reaction videos where I would just be seething at this team. They're unbearable. 15-11, 9-7. You look at Michigan's schedule from the beginning of the year. Struggled against Prairie View, struggled against Buffalo, lose at home to Seton Hall after choking, I think, a double-digit lead at some point. Beating UNLV, but then getting destroyed by Arizona, destroyed by North Carolina. You mix in struggling with Nebraska at some point, choking to Minnesota, losing at UCF, at Rutgers, playing close with Illinois on the road before saying, hey guys, hold my beer, I'm going to leave, and then letting Illinois humiliate you. And then getting humiliated on the road by Michigan State, somehow beating Purdue by 24 points. This team is bipolar in a certain sense, to use the term, and I think in an accurate way. You don't know what you're going to get out of this team. The Purdue game, the Iowa game, strong performances. This past Rutgers game in the second half was a strong performance. But then you have Wisconsin, you have Ohio State, at Penn State. Penn State's been a tough team. Micah Shrewsbury is doing a good job as a head coach there, but still winning by 1 on the road against Penn State, can't do it. Getting blown out by Michigan State, and Michigan State turns out to not be a top 10 team like they were ranked when you played them. You can't do it. And Illinois is no joke. They're no pushover. And Illinois hates you. They hate Michigan. They're 19-7. They're 12-4. They score an average of 76 points a game, allow 66. Michigan has about a 4-point margin of victory. Illinois has, about 8 to 10 point margin of victory. It's actually a 10-point margin of victory. Both have a winning streak of 1 at the moment. Diabate will be back in. Hunter Dickinson, he's going to have to do something. The whole team is really going to have to do something, honestly. And again, pardon some of my lack of knowledge and lack of being able to explain things with basketball, but it's a mess. That's the one thing we can all agree on, is that Michigan and Michigan State right now are both in bad spots. Michigan is without a head coach for the rest of the regular season. The remaining games, including Illinois, Michigan State, Iowa, at Ohio State. Luckily, 3 of those games are home. Michigan State, though, is a rival, and all the other teams are ranked. Wow. I don't know what to expect at this point. For Michigan State and Michigan, I'm taking a pessimistic angle. And Michigan is probably going to find a way to win 1 or 2 of those games, maybe 3. They're definitely going to lose another one. If Michigan wins out somehow, then my guy Phil deserves a nomination for Coach of the Year, because I don't know how you can get this team to win out and go 19-11. I don't get it. I don't understand it. And I don't understand from the beginning, this team has lacked chemistry. They've lacked a togetherness. Houston missing shots. Diabate being, sloppy and getting into it with other players. Juwan Howard straight up punching an assistant. I don't understand it. The team is undisciplined. They're sloppy at times. And then in the game against Purdue, things go perfect. The team is streaky for Michigan. Michigan is a streaky team. As long as they don't get in a hole, they're fine for at least a half. And then in the second half, they'll have another mental skip, and as long as they don't get in the hole then, they're fine. Otherwise, like the Wisconsin game, they get in the hole and the game just falls apart. Michigan State's problem is very similar, except I don't know why, but Michigan State just seems to get into holes very early. And Rico Beard puts it perfectly. He's from 97 Won the Ticket, and he has his own podcast. But he said by the first time out, Michigan State's basically, they're losing, often by double digits. And that's very hard to overcome. So I don't know. The state of these two programs is atrocious. And Michigan is, again, playing an Illinois team that hates them. Illinois and Michigan last year, after Illinois blew Michigan out in the Chrysler Center, Illinois declared that they were basically Big Ten regular season champions because Michigan hadn't played some games due to COVID. And that started its own little rivalry. And here we are now. Illinois hasn't skipped too much of a beat from last year. Michigan is a far worse team than they were last year. And Michigan State has to host Purdue. And Purdue is a really good team. Jaden Ivey's really good. Zach Edey is really good. It's going to be hard. I don't see how a collection of guys like Gabe Brown, Marcus Bingham, and A.J. Hoggard can deal with a group that includes Jaden Ivey and Zach Edey. It's honestly in the same way that I can hardly see Michigan dealing with Illinois. Kofi Cockburn has dominated Hunter Dickinson before. Trent Frazier and Curbelo, we've seen what they've done against Michigan before as well. It's ridiculous. Michigan's only hope, the reason they might have better hope than State against their opponent is A, because Illinois is a worse team than Purdue is, and that's a known fact as Purdue has swept Illinois, and Michigan actually has a win. They have some momentum. But that's not to say that Michigan's a better team. At the moment, State still has 3 more wins. State has beaten Michigan, and March 1st is going to be a video that I'm going to preview and do a ton of research for because it's going to be fascinating. March 1st is going to be fascinating. I feel like whoever wins that game whoever wins that game could probably make the tournament, and whoever loses is out. Whoever loses that game, the collection of homeless people matchup deserves to miss the tournament in the NIT. I can't with these teams. And again, that's all I have to say for this video, actually. This is different. I'm talking more casually, don't have a lot of, facts to speak, but I think overall I am speaking a general truth, and that's the statement that both of these teams are lost and that they need wins now if they want to reach the tournament, if they want to have a chance to get a Sweet 16, get an Elite 8, get a Final Four. I'm not even going to discuss national title until these teams play better. You never know with Tom Izzo. Phil has, I think his name's Martini or Martelli probably. Phil Martelli has brought St. Joseph to a Final Four before. Tom is a really good head coach that I still have respect for as a Wolverine. And it's just, can these guys lead their teams up the hill, or do you guys think they're done? Tell me down below. And thank you for watching. If you liked it, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and comment your thoughts down below. There will be better videos in the future, and by better I mean just ones where I'm making predictions, doing more the usual with college basketball. But I felt it was important to get this out because the 2 matchups coming up this weekend are absolutely critical to these 2 teams' potential appearances in the Big Dance. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys around. Bye.